is to develop an action plan, or at least the outline of an action plan for Romania that could then be carried forward by the Circular Economy Coalition and all of its members, and potentially also partners that would be outside of the Circular Economy Coalition today. It's not a closed thing to the Circular Economy Coalition. But anyway, we're going to be trying to think about some of the action pathways that we need to have in place in order to achieve a target which is increasing glass collection and recycling. I don't think we'll agree today on some specific figure, but there are anyway figures in legislation, I'm sure, that we need to comply with anyway. So we're going to start talking about recycling. Now, in our performance of packaging glass survey, we also have a view on the output, tonnage output from glass cullet recycling facilities. We were not able to do this on a national level for obvious reasons, because we need to respect certain, antitrust rules, and we need to make sure that we are aggregating data on a certain level. But what we did do is break it down into regions. So what you see here are the recycling destinations for material entering the glass cullet recycling facilities in what we would call Eastern Europe, so covering Czech Republic, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. What you see is that of all the materials that are entering the glass cullet recycling facilities in these countries, we know exactly what happens to 94% of them from our survey. So that's already pretty good in terms of traceability. And of those 94%, we know that 92% goes to the closed loop, glass packaging manufacturing. We have 1% going to bricks. But we have this 7%, which is backfilling. And backfilling is always a bit of a gray zone. Some countries would consider it to be recycling. Others would consider it not to be recycling. I haven't yet heard anyone giving me the same exact definition of backfilling. And I haven't heard anyone sort of giving me a real explanation as to how backfilling would be, for instance, very different to construction materials. But be it as it may, we have 7% going to backfilling, and from what I gathered in this morning's discussion, it's possible that Romania, within these four countries, would account for a share of that within the backfilling share of those four countries. So what we're going to be discussing today is, or now, in this afternoon, is what are we going to be doing in Romania to make sure that a maximum amount of material is feeding into that 92% and making it even bigger, but also reducing as much as possible that 7% so that we maintain material in a productive loop. Okay, so once again, there's a lot of material available in this survey, and feel free to go to the Close the Glass Loop website for more information. We'll therefore start with two presentations from the partners that are closest to the closed loop in Romania. We'll start with Constantin, and then we'll go over to Marco. But first, Constantin, please give us a sense of where you're at today in Romania with your activities.
Well, if you ask me as a recycler, we are recycling in Romania 100% of what we get. So it again is not the recycling, the headache, but collection again, and we are insisting on that. It's first the quantity, and second the quality. I think I have a short presentation. Should we go through, or maybe people tired? Okay. Can I have my presentation, please? I won't bore you. It's only one slide, that's it. Yeah. I would say that, okay. All right. Okay. It's me and Marco. Okay. Next. No, my presentation, please. So the market in Romania is getting mature in the last few years. Okay, that's our investment, Green Glass Recycling, which was established in 2013 and is part of our recycling group, green group, is having the end of waste qualification, and we are going exclusively for closed loop. Our installed capacity today is 110,000 tons per year, and the question will be, is it enough? Was enough until today? Was even exceeding the quantities you can receive it, so scaling won't be a problem unless you have enough feedstock. So the future is challenging, and we will be there trying to coordinate efforts with the collection systems and also with the consumer, which is here on my left, be a glass, and the other consuming the cullet. Next slide. Yes, the quality we are obtaining in our facility, it's purity of 99.99, okay, according to the standards. We don't have recently claims. We are harmonized very well with the consumer. Everything goes into remelting, and things are stable for the moment. Next slide. Okay. Look, potential for closed loop. Okay, what's happening? Thank you. We are facing some dramatic changes on the market, and we'll discuss about collection, as I said, recycling and production. So downstream, upstream, what we can see in our position in the circle, we see on the left, we see collection, on the right, we see production. What we do, it's recycling, transforming waste in non-waste. So DRS is becoming, I will say, almost a monopolistic presence in the market. Before, we used to have tens of suppliers and hundreds of municipalities bringing material in the manner they collect it. Now we'll have a huge quantity which are introduced in DRS, and the collection rate can be boosted to eventually 250, 300,000 tons a year. We don't know, but this is a top potential of, looks like this is a top potential of this collection stream. I was not mentioning here the municipality because we need to understand what is left over there and what the quantities are and how they are treated in collection. Because we are talking here, I will say that the municipality flow is enriched with other glass, like, you know, we have a glassware that goes together and is very compatible, and we don't have problem. There are other objects made out of glass and ashtrays and even artistic works. And we also have some flat glass that sometimes it's entering into the stream. And it's also the stream I was mentioning before, the jars, which are not only the one from the supermarket, but the one people buy empty, and it's quite a quantity in Romania, that people they are filling with jam, with pickles, as I said, so it's a house production. Recycling has to scale up according to the potential of the in-feed stream. So we have our plan is to grow our capacity to 260,000 tons beginning of next year. And then we look, why we do all that? So we have been asking local producer here, could you take more cullet? I say, of course, and easily there is a market for almost 200,000 tons of cullet. So if we look in this, let's say, estimation, we can see there is a lot of potential there, so we can grow really organic. Next slide, please. Well, I think the main scope here, and I want to say that we have been choosing this room because it's having a circle table, which can suggest we are going towards a circular economy. Let's look in another perspective, the statistic data. Okay, every number there, it's disputable because it's based on a lot of paperwork behind, which might not be precise. But recycling rate so far, before DRS, from municipal solid waste is 13%. So let's assume we have a 13% recycling rate. But why we don't have only 1.3% circularity? European statistics say Romania is on the bottom with a circularity. So recycling without circularity, probably it's not a very good achievement, and we have to push a lot in increasing a lot the circularity rate to go hand in hand with the recycling rate. We're too far. Means that there are a lot of open loop or questionable solution. And we go now to, to the orange ball there. We say glass collection, it's for recycling reported is 68%. But other calculations are saying that only 1/3 of this is going for cullet and 2/3 is going for backfilling, aggregates, some bricks, and which is not a remelting, is not reusing the glass at its potential as a raw material to remelt and make new products, at least. So you see the big difference may come also from the glass. That's why we are here and what we'll try to shape it. Can we have a map road here how we can increase the glass closed loop? This will increase all the other results in Romania, and of course will be for the satisfaction of the industry, and will come not only with the material, but will come with a lot of decarbonization and all the other good things. Well, I'll make it short. It's a call to an action. What I was explaining to the previous slide, I think we have an urgent need to implement a national plan for closing the glass loop. And for that, I thank you, all of you, being together with us. And I believe together in this circle with all stakeholders, we can improve a lot a result in Romania. We just need a guide. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the little animation there. Very nice. In addition, it's a circle, but actually it's quite similar to the Close the Glass Loop logo because there's this little gap. In the Close the Glass Loop logo, we have the gap as little pink little circles, which represents actually the 10% gap. Proportions are not quite right. But anyway, it's a very representative room. Thank you, Konstantin, for sharing that and for your call for action. This is indeed why we're here, but also to show or to see what would be required on an industrial level to match then the potential increase in all of this extra collected material that we might face. So this is why these two presentations are really important, both on the recycling side, but also on the production side. So I hand over now to Marco Marquez, Managing Director for BA Glass for the Southeast Europe region. Marco, over to you.
Thank you. If Christina can, very good, thank you. Much quicker than we do, see. Okay, so if you can jump for the next slide. So I'll not make a corporate presentation, so I'll keep it very brief. This is just a little bit of background from BA. So we are in the business for quite some time, 110 years. We are growing we are a fast-growing company. Currently, we are talking about 1.5 B. We have also cullet treatment facilities in Iberia and UK. In Romania, we have wonderful partners like Mr. Danov. And so we are exporting for a lot of countries, so a big production. We also have some decoration. We have 4 decoration sites. And so we employ more than 5,000 persons. A little bit more on the geographic side. So we are in 2 continents, okay? And so basically are the 4 main regions that we are operating. So America, Iberia, Central Europe, and Southeast. And we are going to focus a little bit more in Southeast and specifically in Romania. You can? Very good. So this is our plant here in Bucharest. So we are the only producer of food and beverage containers in Romania. We are producing, or we can produce 3 different colors. The cullet that we are now incorporating, or the recycled glass, it's 37%. This is very far from what we can do. And usually we talk about the numbers and we say we can do 60, 70% of cullet incorporation. But this doesn't tell a lot about the size or the amount that we are talking about. Because if we see that we can double the amount of incorporation of cullet in percentage, in reality, we can triple the amount of cullet that we can introduce in our process. And so the numbers that are in green glass, they can easily grow and we can take care of. Because this comes also with our objective, and this is linked with the investment. So last year we started a new furnace. The plan is this year to start a new furnace also. So we are going to increase our capacity by doubling in the period of time that I'll say in 4 years we should double our production. We are talking about the capex of around 200 million. And we are doing this because we see the potential in Southeast and specifically in Romania. And so for us, when we are doing this, we need to also this growth needs to be sustained by the incorporation of cullet, because otherwise we cannot achieve our goals in the complete way, because we might conquer the market share, we can increase sales, but in the end we start to fail in some of our pillars. And so this is why this conversation, the glass loop, this is something that is very dear to us, because it's clear in our pillars that we cannot do our business without being sustained or to be working in our sustainability pillar. So otherwise it doesn't work. And so everything comes together nicely. And so this moment that we are seeing the born of the RS system, it cannot happen in a best moment, because also this is our expectation. So we have the capacity, we have the need, so it's just a matter of getting these volumes in. So this is a little bit of our commitment. So our commitment, and we are part of the science-based targets, so we are part of the Paris Protocol. So we have this, we are aligned and we are measured every year regarding by science-based targets to meet our commitment to the Paris Agreement. 2050, this is our target for carbon neutrality. So we are very happy with this, because this comes with a recognition. So we are not doing this from a couple of years ago. This is something that we've been working for many, many years. And so this latest recognition of everything that we are doing, we are very happy. World Finance, we are considered the most sustainable glass manufacturer for 4 times in a row. And for the CDP, for 2 years in a row, we are considered to be, we are the only glass manufacturer that is that scores, has an A score on the CDP. So this is something, it doesn't mean that the job is done, it means that what we are doing, it's being successful. And this is our, a little bit of the track record, but also still nothing is achieved. So a little bit of our decarbonization strategy. There is something, and we divide this in 4, and I'll go very quickly through them. Energy efficiency, this is like to make a better use of the energy that we are already making. For example, the production efficiency, this is something that we are taking more throughput from the inputs that we are having. When we are talking about raw materials, this is very connected with the cullet. There is other initiatives that has to do with also the other raw materials to be less heavy on CO2 emissions. So also to have a different kind of raw materials that can help us to mitigate the CO2 emissions. Renewable energy, and this is something that we've been quite successful. The other piece is the furnace technology, because what is happening currently is most of the energy that we are using is from gas. So the idea is to offset, and also we can never, at least with the technology that we know so far, we cannot go to zero on gas consumption. But the idea is to offset, and then we have other offers for other types of gas, like biogas, that can also help to mitigate the CO2 overall. So this is just, it's all around a good number, because it tells us a little bit what means for us the recycled glass, okay? So we are saying, if we are incorporating a ton of recycled glass or cullet, of course, we don't need to extract the raw materials from anywhere. We have savings in, because one thing that happens is the virgin raw materials, we lose part of this when we are melting. And so to produce 1 ton of glass, we need 1.2 tons of raw materials, or 1 ton of glass. The energy, we have a saving of energy consumption. So for each ton, we save 2.5. And this is why, by increasing dramatically the percentage of cullet, we can reduce a lot of our energy consumption along with this. And this is very interesting, is because the saving on energy is only half about the CO2 that we save by incorporating cullet. So it has this exponential impact. This is a little bit, how we are distributed, and it's a little bit how we approach all the stakeholders. Fechet and the closed last loop is also a part of this, but we want to, and a little bit like it was discussed, we want to act very local, and we are available to do so. This is just an example that I think is interesting when we are talking about the stakeholders that are all together in this class loop. Is this example from Portugal, that is Plataforma Vidro Plus or Vidro Mais. That is this, this is the idea, is to bring everyone on the same table and include everyone in order to be able to cooperate, because we all have an alignment of interests, and this is, we are all together on this. So this is the kind of, not only in one side, is to put everyone on the same side. Because in the end, the DRS, non-DRS, this is not really the point for us. The point for us is to create schemes that are enabling the closed last loop. Aligned with what we are discussing, about more connected with an action plan. And the first thing that I need to mention, it has to do with the cultural change, okay? Because we are talking about DRS as an enabler of this transformation of, to get the glass into a recycling system. But in the end, this will not comprehend the whole glass that is happening, okay? In order, and this is independently of the system of return, has to do how people behave, if people are really separating the waste. And this is something that needs to happen, because once you make this cultural change, this has a cascading effect on everything, okay? And so, for sure, DRS is going to achieve this closely because of this incentive for the recycling, but we need to reach everything. And so to reach this, we need to change the mindset, and we need to make it very hard. And this is one of these cultural shocks that I felt, is like once they tell me to put all the paper, the plastic, and the glass on the same bag, I have a brain freeze, because I really have a tough time doing this, okay? And this is also connected with the second point. It has to do with, to start the education on the older age, on the younger age, because I'm part of this generation that was, in fact, I was shaming my mother when we were talking about recycling and separation. My generation was the first one because it was something that was taught on a very young age. When my mother was not separating, I would come to her and I say, but what is happening? Why we don't have the separate baskets? And I really didn't understand the full range of what we were talking. But for me, this is something that is good. And so if my mother is not doing this, I'm going to push her to do. And so it's really embarrassing. And this is why I'm saying a little bit of shaming goes, that we have this younger generation teaching the others. But it has a really leverage effect on this. Okay? And I can remember, I can resist myself to share this. And I was talking with Mr. Danov earlier. We had this Gervasio. That was a campaign. And it was so effective that in the end, it comes as an expression, don't be a Gervasio. That was basically a monkey doing separation. And so the punchline in the end was like, if Gervasio can do it, why you can't? And so this was so powerful that after a while, everyone is like, don't be a Gervasio when you are not doing really the separation. So don't, it was very interesting to see how fast things can happen if you are touching the right vehicles, okay? And education, it has this powerful effect. The second point is all the stakeholders, okay? And today we touch in this point because they are glass that is outside of the DRS scope. This glass, this also to go on the closed circle. Unlike other materials, we don't care where is coming the glass. It comes from beverages, perfumes, whatever. For us, we can get the same final quality despite the origin. And so we are here, we want to be part of this. You know, hearing this from Roxana, from the municipality of Bucharest, you know, we want to work, we want to be, you know, like, we want to go to the schools, we want to be part of this change. One thing that is very critical, and DRS is a new player that is coming into this, the supply chain, a value supply chain of the recycled glass. So this is really a value supply chain, okay? No one is, between us, the recyclers, we treat this as a raw material that we need to process, like many of other raw materials. But for us, there's a value in there. But like all the supplies that we have, the price also matters. So if we destabilize this value supply chain too much, in the end, it's not a solution for us. And so then we need to go for other solutions, okay? This is the one that we prefer, because when we see the cost benefit and it's there, we should use it. And so this is our immediate response, is to go on recycled glass. And we share the value. We are happy how things are running. Just if we disrupt this to the point that is no longer a business, then we have a lot of glass that has no use. Okay. The fourth point is, again, it's connecting with the previous point. This is a value material. This is not waste. This is a raw material. And it should stay in Romania closed loop. And for us, this is also important because the value should be kept in Romania. So this is, very briefly, I try not to take too much time, not to make very corporate, but this is the challenges that we are putting out there. But we are not asking for someone to pitch in. We want to pitch in. We just need a little bit of guidance and to teach us how to participate in this process. Thank you.
I would like to add something. We're talking about this platform having the ambition of 90%, and we are also talking about high content in the new packaging. And we did it here in Romania. We proved that they can produce 68% so far, and we can even improve the content of cullet in the new bottle. So the only thing we really need to achieve is ambitious, is that 90% of collection. So we are there.
Yes, so the future holds a lot of promise. We have a collection system being introduced in Romania that in principle has the DNA inbuilt to collect a lot of containers because of the basic financial incentive that is attached to each container placed on the market. So we have a promise, and what we have on the industrial side is an ambition and a potential to grow and to accommodate for extra material being collected, including in a very sort of fast-paced growth. I didn't hear anything of you saying, how are we going to deal with so much more extra glass coming our way? It seems like you would have a capacity to process even a very speedy increase in the material, which might not always be the case in all industries. But we still have to discuss the collection. So I want to try and put forward a couple of ideas for discussion. The first one is that obviously we need to look at the deposit system, okay? This is clearly 90% of the solution is the deposit system. And it sounds like there's a lot of promise in that deposit system, but we've already heard a couple of issues that need to be addressed. And so in my mind, the action plan for closing the glass loop in Romania will naturally need to address the question of how do we make this DRS as effective as possible when it comes to the collection of glass containers. Okay, obviously here we're only dealing with glass. Now, I just want to put forward three things. One is logistics. So the collection logistics and the potential impacts those collection logistics may have on the glass material itself, and how that may impact the ability for that glass material to go back into the closed loop. The second thing that I got from, I can't remember if it was Julia or Gemma, I forget now, but I think I heard something on the transportation. Now, we're going to be dealing with a system that will be highly distributed across the country, and where we will need to install a system that transports, collects, manages material. Therefore, it raises the question on the territorial distribution of the closed loop. So, in the industrial investments being considered, how are you planning to adapt to regional contexts within Romania? I think that's also a question that I have in my mind. And the third one linked to the DRS would be the specific issue related to Horeca, which is a bit aside to the general retailer model. Would that be a fair assessment of the issues that would need to be addressed for glass under DRS? So that's my first question, or do you think of other challenges that we need to think about? And then I'm going to start asking for a few answers to these challenges. But first on the challenges themselves, the logistics on collection, the territorial distribution, and Horeca. Would those be the three main pillars of making DRS as effective as possible for glass? And please, the floor is totally open now.
Bună ziua! Aș vrea să fac și eu câteva clarificări, tocmai pentru a nu porni de la cifre greșite care ne pot duce la soluții ineficiente. În primul rând, aș vrea să mă asigur că toți înțelegem acel procent de 13% care a fost menționat atât de domnul ministru în prezentarea colegului meu Sorin Dumitru și, bineînțeles, în prezentarea domnului Damov. Procentul de 13% ca și realizare se referă la obiectivul autorității locale de deviere de la depozitare a tuturor deșeurilor colectate în area lor de gestionare. Acest obiectiv include deșeurile de ambalaj, deșeul non-ambalaj, reciclabil non-ambalaj și, bineînțeles, biodeșeul. Nu trebuie să plecăm de aici cu sentimentul că, având un 13% în zona autorității locale, acolo vom găsi un potențial fantastic, pentru că procentul de reciclare a deșeurilor, mai ales de ambalaj, inclusiv din zona autorității locale, este mult mai mare. Acesta ar fi una din clarificări. Pe de altă parte, trebuie să vedem, dacă ne referim la închiderea sticlei în sticlă, că lucrurile se întâmplă inevitabil. În ce sens? Trebuie să înțelegi...
Nu merge traducerea. Do you hear what the translation?
Well, I realized I didn't have any interpretation on this one, so I just started now, but please.
Cred că trebuie dat pe 2.
There should be a volume button here.
Nu merge traducerea, că n-au dat pe 2 aici, cred. Okay.
Nu.
E ok acum?
Yeah, but
Can you hear now?
yes, no, I mean, my device doesn't have a system, I realized. So I had to go on another device, but it's fine.
Somebody's coming in a minute to see.
Ok. Ok. Nu mai revin asupra acelui 13%. Sper că s-a și auzit explicația mea și s-a și înțeles. Pe de altă parte, dacă ne referim la această discrepanță între sticla colectată și procentul care se închide în sticlă, din cifrele, cred că prezentate de Sorin, reieșea că avem un 85.000 de tone închise în sticlă de către reciclatorii români, 60.000 de tone la export și undeva în jur de 120.000-130.000 de tone chipurile închise în bolțari. Și atunci, normal, pare că procentul de sticlă închisă, reciclată în sticlă, este foarte mic. Trebuie să ne uităm la acel 135.000 care este raportat ca închis în bolțari și cred că putem să ne referim la două cauze. Una ar fi, s-ar putea ca aceste date să fie contaminate, în sensul să fie declarate cantități mai mari închise în sticlă în mod nereal, iar dacă sunt cantități de sticlă colectate care n-au ajuns la facilitățile de reciclare din România, o cauză importantă ar putea să fie inclusiv distanța, pentru că trebuie să ne uităm la România. Sunt 3 reciclatori de sticlă, toți grupați în acest moment în sudul țării și știm foarte bine că impactul costului de transport mai ales asupra sticlei, este foarte mare și deja apariția SGR-ului a împins la rezolvarea acestei cauze. Domnul Damov a anunțat o investiție în Ardeal și mai există o investiție anunțată, finalizată probabil luna viitoare, în Bacău. Deci partea de acoperire teritorială, trebuie să recunoaștem, datorată apariției SGR, deja s-a rezolvat. Pe de altă parte, în România, împărțirea cantităților de sticlă pe cele două fluxuri, SGR și IPR, duce în mod inevitabil la obligativitatea celor care se ocupă de atingerea obiectivelor producătorilor prin IPR să găsească noi soluții. Pentru că, într-adevăr, 75% probabil din cantitățile de sticle introduse pe piață vor fi gestionate de SGR, care a anunțat o creștere graduală a obiectivelor de la 65% în primul an la 90% în 3 ani. Deci deja dacă facem calculul 90% din 75 ne dă o cantitate foarte mare, dar nu trebuie să uităm că celelalte 25%, undeva în jur de 120.000 de tone, rămân în gestionarea OIREP-urilor, de sistemului EPR, care vor trebui să găsească noi soluții pentru că ei au obligația de a recicla 65% din această 100.000 pe care o gestionează și cumulate, cifrele vor duce la un procent de reciclare global pentru România mult mai mare. Și probabil colegul meu Sorin Dumitru, din motive de timp, când a pomenit de soluția găsită de OIREP-uri, aceea de clearing house, eu știu din interior că apariția segherului este considerată o oportunitate tocmai ca un moment în care organizațiile, IPR-urile, OIREP-urile să se așeze la masă cu autoritățile publice locale, tocmai ca noile condiții în care încep să dispară o cantitate considerabilă, atât de sticlă, de PET și mai puțin de aluminiu din zona de gestionare a acestora, trebuie refăcută atât infrastructura și regândite posibilitățile pentru ca obiectivele, cum spuneam, de sticlă să fie realizate. Pentru că știm foarte bine, în acest moment, obiectivele de reciclare pe sticlă s-au făcut în mare măsură din unități de sticlă. În niciun caz din borcane, adică procentul de colectare și reciclare din borcane este foarte mic, dar, cum spuneam, împărțirea și în momentul în care SGR-ul va deveni operațional și eficient, așa cum reiese din cifrele înaintate de GEMA, ceilalți vor fi obligați să găsească soluții. Deci eu aș vrea totuși să vedem că în România se pleacă de la niște cifre de colectare, reciclare, în niciun caz suficiente, dar în niciun caz dezastruoase și considerăm că în acest moment primii pași pentru creșterea cantităților de reciclare a sticlei în sticlă deja sunt făcuți. Mulțumesc.
Okay, so it's true that there was a slight imbalance, right, between the sound from the microphone and the sound of what we were getting in the headset. I hope I got the main gist. One was questioning the validity of the 13% recycling rate. I think that was the first one. That was a bit of more of a challenge on the data. The second one, if I understand it right, is for glass, maybe in particular, because of the weight of the material, it's even more important to have a strong territorial distribution for the recycling of glass to limit the transport. And that's, I think you identify that as a challenge for Romania to deal with the transport distances, as I understand it. And maybe the glass collection and recycling value chain will need to think of an answer for that. If I got that right. And the third one is that you basically identify this problem that for food jars, it's even more difficult to have recycled content than beverages, whereas food jars are outside of the deposit system and therefore will be part of the EPR system and will need to be dealt with because it's even more challenging to have recycled content in food jars. I think those were the big points. Okay. So, some reactions.
On the first one, Jean-Paul, so this 13%, which Janine underlined. So we listen to this story very often. Romania has only 13% recycling rate. How bad you are. In fact, we speak about 13% deviation from the landfill. Local authorities need to deviate from what they collect, okay? Now the target is, I think, 50% and will increase up to 90%. No? Anyway, it's about deviation, how you deviate from what you collect from the landfill. And now we have that small percentage because we really don't deviate nothing on biomass. We make this percentage only from packages. That's why it's so small. But if we speak only about packages put on the market and how much is recycled from that packages, we are making the targets each year 65% on average. So that's not the real problem. Okay?
Okay, and I think that, you know, if we start looking at data, I have a feeling we won't have come up with an action plan by 4 p.m. So data is always a tricky one because obviously it informs policy, but at the same time, yeah, it has all sorts of methodological issues and there are different ways of looking at a percentage. But I think for me, the key point that I would really like to is this question of territorial distribution. Because how does one deal with that? And what is the specific aspect of Romania that makes this territorial distribution a little bit more complicated than in other countries? I mean, I can think of Sweden, for instance, where you have vast amounts of territory to cover. As far as I understand it, they centralize everything in a single glass cullet recycling facility in Sweden. There's only one, and all the material gets centralized there. So why would the situation in Romania be more difficult than in Sweden, for instance, in terms of transport of material, and how can we address this, given that we're going to have a frequency of collection and a much more distributed collection across Romania that we'll have to deal with? So how do we deal with that? Julia, please.
It is complex, indeed. And to try to answer your question, there are many aspects that were considered when the DRS was discussed first. In addition to having a geography, so it's quite a spread country, or I missed a number of square kilometers, but nonetheless, we are aware of the map of Europe. It's also a matter of distribution between mountain areas, quite secluded locations, and that relates with the fact that the retail universe in Romania is also very fragmented. We've been discussing probably not so much about the retail involvement, but I think it was mentioned, one of the numbers at the beginning by Gemma, we're talking about 80,000 outlets. And just to refer back to the sector I'm representing, as far as beer is concerned, 70% of the beer that we sold in Romania is actually sold through the traditional trade, small stores, as well as through Horeca. And only 30% of the volumes are traded through the key accounts, the modern trade. So you all understand that the level of the penetration within the market of the retail chains is actually not as high as we have seen in other European markets. And that adds to the complexity because it increases the number of retailers that have to be enrolled with the system. And therefore, it increases the complexity of the transportation that have to be provided so that all the empties collected by all the retailers across the country are actually returned to the collection centers operated by the system administrator. And then, of course, it's one other matter that is also relevant for Romania. Unfortunately, we are lagging behind with the development of the road infrastructure. The number of highway kilometers definitely is not in our favor, and in that sense, perhaps it adds more to the complexity of the way we are able and will be able to handle the logistics system. But in order to cope with these particularities of the country, also the fact that we choose to have one single operator. You can understand that at the initial stages of the development of the DRS system in Romania, the proposal to have several operators in the market was also one of the options envisaged. But as producers, we wanted to have control of the system and in that sense defended the interest of having one operator to serve the entire country and would do that based on a non-for-profit principle by looking at the most efficient cost for producers because ultimately it's the producer that is supporting the cost of this collection that is happening through the DRS system. So I think that's a quick answer to a very complex question as well. Thank you.
And just to build on that, we are bringing those bottles in last village of the country, like producers. We are able to feed all the stores, either small or big, with, I can say, quite often, so not to be out of stock, okay? We have built a system which is called Returo, which is designed specifically to be able to take down all these empties. In the same manner, we are bringing it in the shops, okay? So we are using multiple tools like backhauling, transport companies, control tower for the transport. So to make sure that this is fully functional system. Of course, this is costing us a lot. But we've had this full picture from the beginning, how to do it in order to achieve the goals. So we can assure you that administrator of the system will be able to take the empties back from each shop. Now, question is what to do with them, okay? This adds more complexity, and of course, this will be a bonus for us to have cullets factories spread it in, because in fact we have at least 3 Romania here, okay? Due to mountains and so on. Why not to look on the regional market? Because sometimes for the western part of the country, some facilities could be closer than south from Romania, okay? We don't know for sure if this is the correct option or should be adapted. But for the start, we took this into consideration, and it looks like it's an operational system and fully working.
Because this is a key question. I mean, at what point does a transport burden make it less efficient to recycle material in a closed loop? Take the case of Cyprus, for instance. 100% of the recycling rate for glass in Cyprus is not based on the closed loop. 100%. It's based on an open application for recycling, right? But it's still a recycling rate. Now that's probably explained because you don't have an industry manufacturing glass containers on the island of Cyprus. Therefore, there's going to be a necessary transport cost to getting that material out of Cyprus somewhere where there is manufacturing. Now, it would be unfortunate that in the situation of Romania, there is not a way of compensating for that when there is actually, in Romania, a manufacturing industry producing glass containers. Now, there's only one, right? There's only one plant. You can't pop up plants all over the place, maybe. That might not also be, you know, the best strategy necessarily, but I think there needs to be maybe a meeting point between the distribution of cullet facilities and, you know, the transport costs that will be borne by producers now on waste materials. Like, I think the action plan might need to try and meet halfway there. At least to think about what would be the best strategy to do that. Maybe a reaction, yeah, from Constantin or other, you know, recyclers in Romania or Marco?
You know, I think we can complicate easily simple things here. Cullet, it's always a product. We have been shipping out with a vessel, and there are vessels in Mediterranean and in the Black Sea moving this material like any other scrap material, need for industry, and the industry will pay for it. When you need it, you have to pay the product plus the transportation. So irrespective, well, where this will be, the glass should reach the closest one. Won't be in Romania, will go in Hungary. There are Hungarian friends here, or go some other country. Of course, you know, circularity means also proximity to have less emission. So for sure, you cannot move plants and to build plants just to be close to where is collected glass. Glass should be collected next to the plants. Or there are many ways to make complicate this discussion, but at the end of the day, we need capacity of collection, capacity of processing, and needs of the industry. And I'm sure the glass in form of cullet and bottles will find its own way to the market. Romania is importing bottle from Germany and from Netherlands, empty bottles. So market will work, offer and demand will work.
You just told. No, because this is, again, first, I'm very happy and I really, I'm putting all my chips in the success of DRS. Okay, so far we didn't receive nothing, but also in our budget, we have a huge gap of cullet, as the gentleman knows, because what we are expecting is this on-flow of cullet. Maybe I'm trying, and this is a problem that I have, but I tend to oversimplify, okay? And there is one thing is, if suddenly in the Yasho, suddenly for some kind of reason, we have 100,000 tons in there of cullet, okay? And someone calls green glass, I have 100,000 tons. This is a chain of value supply, okay? So it will regulate. He'll understand what is better to send, and in the end, what is the price that I'm willing to pay. And so it regulates naturally. The distribution will happen because I have a value that is in here. And so in the end, what DRS is just saying, it's creating this value, this accumulation of value in different places. And after that, the supply chain needs to take over. And we need to be very careful when we are saying the DRS in part of the situation is increasing the cost of transportation because it's not from the collection point to the processing point. It goes to the selection point, and then we need to decide where it goes. So it might be tricky. It's not all problems have a solution. This is not the point. What I'm trying to say is, if there is a demand, if there is a value, the supply chain will take care. And so if we don't have the logistics around this, is because we didn't have the value on the first moment. So once we get it, the supply chain will work and will create solutions by train, by boat, by whatever. There is a value that we want to capture, right? And so this is the tricky part, and this is the only thing that concerns us, is because you might disrupt so much this to the point that it's no longer a business. And so, sustainability and the economy and how healthy are the companies, they all need to come together, because in the end, this is the economy, and people live out of the economy. And so I think, and this is, again, the biggest point is we need to bring this value together, and then the supply chain will take care. In the meantime, because this challenge was made to DRS, all the logistics are coming from DRS. But I think this is, and this is where it's a fine line, but it can be very interesting, is to decide until when on the logistics DRS wants to come. And when you want to leave this to supply chain to take over.
Okay, so it looks like there's something to be worked on. I think we agree that. So whatever the solution, to find a way of making sure that the logistics work at the best possible cost, right? So that it does end up as much as possible in the closed loop. I think we've discussed HoReCa quite extensively, and I think from what I heard from Gemma, the specific issue of, let's say, problems with collection on DRS and the breakage and all that stuff is being taken care of. But anyway, that should probably be part of the action plan, but I don't feel like we need to discuss that extensively right now. I might move then to the second point that I have noted here, which is the remaining glass outside of the DRS. And how do we create value? And how do we work with municipalities who will be responsible for that collection, but not necessarily with a lot of investment capacity? And how do producers sit on this investment capacity when they have not that much material going into the market? So probably the action plan in Romania will also need to deal with that. with that part, okay? One question, maybe on the DRS side, just to understand. If we say that for glass, 10% is outside of the DRS, do we know how much is outside of the DRS for PET compared to the PET in the DRS? And do we know how much is outside the DRS in terms of aluminium compared to the cans that are in the DRS? Are we on comparable figures of 90-10, or are we on very different figures for the other materials?
I may say that it's at least double. So for PET, I think it's 60-40 or 70-30, something like this. And for cans, 20% I think will stay outside the DRS. It depends. It depends because most of the beverages are using that type of container. So, but still, there are other industries which are using that materials.
So 60-40 PET, 80-20 aluminium, and 90-10 glass. I mean, this is not going to be official figures, but anyway, just to give an order of magnitude. So it means that for all materials covered by the DRS, there will be a much lower fraction not covered by DRS. Mm-hmm. Okay? Okay. So the question then becomes, how does one collect these materials? Not just glass, actually. Now, I have an idea for discussion, and I'm sure lots of people will hate me for it, but I'm happy for that. It's no problem. I'm just wondering, would it be an option to consider that for all the materials that fall outside of the DRS, that would be dry packaging, PET, cans, and glass, wouldn't it make sense to collect those together? To kind of centralize a collection system at the municipality level on the basis that for the rest, you have a pretty clean, separate collection stream via the DRS. So you're only actually targeting a small amount of material, and probably the processing plants could deal with a mixed collection system for the remaining material and still get a decent amount out of it, bearing in mind that in any case, you could probably achieve the targets, at least for glass, just on the DRS. Would that be an idea for discussion to try and overcome having DRS plus an extra separate collection system for glass, plus extra separate collection systems for other materials, for a small fraction in the end of material? Is that an option up for discussion?
Jean-Paul, welcome to Romania. This is the reality now.
I like it.
We collect only on 2 fractions. So the real collection happens in the best way, that you have municipal waste and recyclable part. So if you are happy enough to have those 2 fractions functioning, it's okay, and will function even tomorrow with the others. We are not in the country where 4 or 5 fractions, it's a reality. There are some exceptions, I could say that relevant ones. So we have counties and big localities which are really doing a very good job, but there are exceptions. So if we are supposed to live with that non-DRS materials into the second bag they have, it will be a big achievement.
I'm actually going to pass on the mic to Mr. Damon precisely because I remember one conversation we had not so long ago exactly about the glass being broken when collected together with the other types of packaging. And in that sense, you're losing it. It doesn't get to be recycled. It may be it is downcycled and serves for the purpose of other sectors like the cement industry or others. But definitely, if collected together with other packaging, so not separate stream, you fail to close the loop and to recycle the glass in a closed loop, which is ultimately the main objective, at least around this round table. So, Mr. Damov, maybe you want to further develop that idea.
I just want to say that the unique solution, we put DRS on the side. For the rest is, we need to have very separate collection for glass, only glass, to be a pure stream of collection. And don't forget that here we won't say there is not a target. Municipality will still have a target, and producer putting jar or other cosmetics, they need to collect 65%. So the pressure is still there. So should be a minimum 65% collected also outside DRS. At the end, we may have a quite satisfactory if we can reach the target, like 90% on DRS and 65, 70% outside DRS. But I'm repeating, without having a very pure, very separate, I'm insisting on very separate, only glass collection, we won't be able to continue to extract glass from the municipal stream.
If I may add something here to your idea, Jean-Paul, or to this hypothesis, we cannot talk about clean collection of recyclable until we have a good collection of biodegradable, which we don't. So at this point in time, biodegradable is wherever you want it or you don't want it, definitely with the recyclables, and therefore it kind of kills your results. And by the way, for biodegradables, you don't have producer responsibility to help.
May I, Jean-Paul? Thank you. Just picking up on what my colleague has said previously and what the co-panelists also mentioned, with regard to this, your proposal at least, to see whether a commingled collection could be possible or not. First of all, I think it's fair to say that we don't have a universal recipe for separate collection in Romania. We have areas in which we collect on two fractions, wet and dry, and probably that's in most of them. There are areas where there is a commingled collection for the dry for the dry fraction, and there are also separate collection infrastructures. As we said, and my colleague also mentioned previously, we have to start from what there exists today, and there is some sort of separate collection infrastructure that was put on the ground via the accessing the non-reimbursable European funding at county level. Now, that is already set on collection per type of material, and it's recyclables, it's not just packaging, obviously. So it should be put to use, no doubt about that. But there's a need for a very real inventory of this particular let's say, infrastructure existing. Should it be more, then obviously it should be more. As Janine said, it will be 125,000 tons of glass packaging put on the market that will be in the, let's say, on the obligation of the EPR schemes. We will still have to make our contribution to 65% and then even further from that. It's going to be interesting how we're going to do it, as glass bottles are going to shift away from the public stream to the DRS. And as I also mentioned earlier, traditionally speaking, in urban, but mainly in rural areas, the other type of packaging, jars being, they don't really become waste as easy as glass does. So there is going to be a problem even achieving the 65% of what remains in the glass. But obviously there is the blue bag or the yellow bag that works in different circumstances, and I think there are municipal operators here that also have this type of projects. It's just that we don't have a one-fit-size-all solution for now, but I think it's about time, and this is the message that we, the EPR schemes, are putting out there. The deposit return system is an opportunity for all of us to sit together and start look at what is left of this and how are we going to manage it. Because as I said, if only 25 or 30% of the total packaging market shifts to the DRS, there is still a lot to do, including with DRS materials. There are still going to have to be collected and identified solutions for recycling, even more so, because the clean material or the cleaner material is going to go to the DRS, no doubt about that. But it's all about the separate collection. And indeed, most of it is in relationship with what the local authorities and municipalities should actually do. We're trying to set up a system in which we, meaning the EPR schemes, with the support of the obliged industry, will have more of a saying in how these systems are going to actually be readjusted, because they have been calculated and built based on some assumptions. Now the entire assumptions are being changed. Some of these quantities did not even exist at the time when they were conceived. Now some are shifting. So this is a huge opportunity for us to actually look into the separate collection system. Whether it's going to be a commingled solution, it could be that as well, but no doubt, most likely, glass will have to be collected separately. Thank you.
Maybe, I don't want to be too technical, but I can't resist one question, which might be either for Konstantin or any other glass cullet recycling facility around the table. Let's imagine the situation in Romania where you have one fraction, a very big fraction, coming from DRS, very homogeneous, relatively pure, maybe a few little problems with fines, but you're basically dealing with glass, right? And then you have another fraction, smaller fraction, coming from municipal waste in Romania, which, as I understand, is not collected separately, therefore pretty much commingled with lots of different materials. How do you deal with these two inputs coming in, especially when one is a very low quality input and not a big fraction? Do you basically have a system where you run your material in a processing system just for DRS, and then you run a little bit of material that's like coming from the poor input? Or do you mix the two together and you use the fact that you have one very pure stream that can actually accommodate for lower quality material coming from a smaller fraction, and you can get more out of both in the end? Or do you separate completely the two streams and you process them one after the other, as it were? Like, how do you actually deal with two very different homogeneous levels of homogeneity coming into your plants? Actually, that would be an interesting one, because then it would also help to understand the combination of the collection systems. So how do you deal with that, just out of interest? Well, you or, yeah, I mean, as you wish. Yeah.
Well, there is a solution. We should sign an NDA. Well, we have a fraction much worse today, and we are doing the job. So it's not that we have a very good fraction and a little bit of something bad and we have to deal with. We have so much bad today and we do our job. So we'll have more and more good material. So we'll find a way. Of course, there are recipes and the tuning of the equipment. But when we say that is a contamination, I have to say that there is a level of contamination accepted at the gate. If it's too much contamination, we refuse a truck. This is what is happening today. We cannot accept half truck bricks and wood and earth and half truck glass. No, it's when we say contaminated, it's a contamination with a biodegradable that they are stick on that and some dust, which we can deal with. It's a very good material, glass. It's not like plastic. It's so good, so you can clean it and you can have a food grade from material which is very contaminated. So that's a beauty of the glass. So I don't see any problem to have this both fraction, especially when the one which is very good, it's more than 60–70%. So I think it should be fine.
Okay, it touches maybe too much of a strategic aspect of glass recycling. I mean, it's just to try and think about the future as well, because there will be a big change on the quality of the input materials. And so I just think it's interesting to see how on the processing side you're able to deal with that, and whether there might be an additional risk that not only is it very difficult to collect the remaining glass outside of the fraction, but in addition, it gets more difficult to meet the quality requirements to actually be processed, because the risk of contaminating the high quality fraction, which is the biggest part, is getting bigger, you know? So I was just thinking it might be interesting to still address that in the action plan, that you are still incorporating that material, even if it's of a much lower quality, and to address that, maybe with, I don't know, investments or what have you in processing.
But I have to add something here, going in technical details. Material from DRS, if it's broken in very small pieces, then we have a real contamination even with glass. Because the fines, for us, is like a contamination. So we lose the fine and small pieces. So at the end, we have to do a lot of tests in the coming weeks, and we'll try to understand what is the best mixture composition and where we have a best yield. It might be a surprise sometime that a contaminated but entire bottle could have a better yield than a very clean but is broken in very small pieces. But we have to measure. We don't want to speak before we make these tests.
My name's Kevin Bell from Malta Glass Recycling. Just to give a different perspective from a recycler's viewpoint, technically, there's no issues in what you've suggested. There's solutions now because we do it now. So in more advanced countries in Western Europe, we do exactly what you're asking. There's good quality material, there's poorer quality material commingled. There's a whole raft of things that we have to do now anyway. So having some better material coming through, whether it's a DRS system, is good. But you know, technically as well, without going into too much detail, we can extract some of the fines as well and use that. So there's technically solutions to a lot of the things that we're trying to work for as companies to look at these things, because we know everything's not ideal. And there is technical solutions that are being sought and put in place by certain companies at this moment in time that can extract even more glass out of the amount that we currently get, that we're currently bringing in. But I retain the fact of everybody else is saying it's the collection rate. If we increase the collection rate, we can do so much more, but we're trying to do so much more already with the fraction size that we already get, the amount.
Thank you. Okay, any final comments as we build this action plan, which currently has 2 big points? But, you know, I don't think we'll come up with the action plan today, but we'll see how we wrap up, but yeah. Any final comments? No? Okay, so I would like to hand over to Raul Pop, Vice President of the Circular Economy Coalition and also Program Director of Ecoteca. So you've been part of this discussion. Tell us a bit your thoughts, your reactions. How would you see the action plan for Romania?
Well, to start from, hello everybody. To start from, we generally don't lack action plans and strategies. That's one thing that we kind of know. I will start first to speak about the how we opened this discussion today. Firstly, yeah, very nice room, roundly seated, also full of glass. If you see, we never talked about the rest of the glass other than packaging, but still it's there. Very exciting times. Definitely we're not going to get bored in the near future. But just listening to today's opinions and positions, we can call it easily the yin-yang conference. Everything is versus something else. DRS versus non-DRS, political versus operational, quantity versus quality, quantity versus money, and so on and so forth. As we heard it from the very beginning, there is a, first of all, the minister said the government has the ambitions of overcoming the current results, albeit 13% or 5% or whatever. It's still very far from either any of the other upper levels that we're comparing it against. So to me, it doesn't make too much of a difference at this point in time. Also, we had somebody from the purely political side saying there is a lot of political support for glass recycling, which is good, of course. You always need to have the people around the table who can help it. Hopefully that will materialize into something useful for the industry, useful for the overall mechanics and economics of this very intricate system of handling glass, but not only glass. We're talking about glass today, but it's not that much different from any other streams. And if you expand it outside of recycling and you look into the circular economy thing, we're already just scratching a little bit of a surface, or maybe multiple surfaces, but still just scratching them. There is on one hand this pressure towards full standardization versus the requirement from the industry to keep the functionalities from a little bit, looking at it a bit more cater to the complexity of the topic and not going with one full solution that, as also was mentioned, there is no way that there is a one-size-fits-all type of approach. So even if you have an action plan, it still has to combine different elements, and therefore, it's, as I said, it's not going to be either boring or easy. Do we talk about two systems versus a unique system in terms of expanding the range of what's covered in the DRS, or not only in terms of products, but also in terms of recyclable versus or plus reusable, refillable? Already three different concepts that we need to look deeper into and look into the logistics behind it. We are very proud to have one of the biggest DRS systems in the world. This not only adds to the ecological value of it, but also adds a lot to the political value of it. And probably that's something that you always have to keep in mind, because most often than not, some of the decisions that have to be made have to go through some political sifters and see if they go through or not. And most sensitive to us is not only if or not, but also very sensitive is the factor of when do they go through. Are we closer to the very last moment of a European deadline, or we're just in the 12th or even 13th hour after it had to be fulfilled? Because based on that, we can cascade down the quality of the regulation, the amount of time spent in the consultations with relevant voices in the actual phenomenon, who can bring value to the table and can work towards a better norm. And in DRS's case, in Romania at least, it was one of the let's say, happy examples in which there was a lot of consultation. Even so, there were parties not present in the consultation and coming back to the topic after everything has been decided to complain about it, which probably is the cost of doing business anyway when you do public policies. We heard also some specific challenges from different sub-verticals, beer, water, soft drinks. And I'm very happy that Mr. Vishan put in comparison the fatigue of the industry, which again is not, I don't think it's going to get easier because it's not only the DRS we're talking about pressures over the industry versus individual responsibility. Again, yin yang, again, crushed versus broken, another. The nice thing about these dilemmas is they don't work one against each other. They have to work one with each other, which is making the things even a little bit more difficult to decide upon. In Romania, that's just for our foreign guests, we have had this debate of costs versus performance of the collecting systems, money having to be spent by producers, organized then in EPR schemes versus the, let's say, the efficiencies built in or not into the public collection systems. At the end of the day, we all know that all these costs then turn into price, and all these costs come back directly to us as individuals. But I think these discussions are very good, and I think some significant steps have been made in the last, let's say, 5 years. There are still many issues that are brought up, and my only hope is that they will not, since we have many extra issues that are not handled right now in the highest level of details or the smallest level of details, my only hope is that they will not turn into an equal number of laws. Because as of today, we have in operation 100 pieces of legislation regarding just waste. Close to nothing regarding circular economy, but it's a completely different discussion. But regarding waste, we already have too many laws and regulations. Not all of them regulate the same way, the same thing. Sometimes, depending on how many laws you have exactly the same number of, even a higher number of loopholes in between, and all sorts of uncertainties and approximations when you're applying the laws. I asked Christina, and thank you for that, to bring back your slide, and thank you for that, for having this slide. One of the things that is not necessarily specifically mentioned there, maybe a little bit touched on the first priority, which I'm very happy is nothing material. Because we're not talking about material stuff. I mean, we are talking about material stuff, but it's a little bit easier to handle. It's physics and economics and arithmetics and stuff like that. One thing that's going throughout all those priorities, and probably even 20 more, which we can identify easily just out of the bat here, is information and flow of information. Right now, in my perception is that decarbonization, if you go nearer into, I don't know, recycling or different decarbonization of different industries, is everybody's and nobody's responsibility. We have a huge issue, a huge topic to be debated and solutions to be found in being able to assess actual measurable individual responsibility, because otherwise I don't think anything gets done. It's all nice and dandy. We can all go to conferences, some of them better, some of others probably just conferences. By the way, I want to applaud the technical level of this discussion. It's something that probably it's 1 out of 100 discussions that can reach that ambition on being to the point and having the right discussion partners around the same table. But I do believe, coming back to that, words need to be turned into actions by using a lot of information and of data. Otherwise, there is no common place around which all the stakeholders can gather and look at it from a compatible, at least, perspective. Any change in the system requires, of course, it requires goodwill and desire to change it, but then it requires decisions to be made, and decisions can be made only on data, which we have traded like 2 or 3 numbers today, which we're not able to come to agree on. And if you just look at the operational numbers, you'll find probably 100 relevant key indicators in each of our individual cases, which we might not be able to address in the same manner or from the same perspective. So I think I would close. Like all good conferences, we always have more questions than answers, almost at an absolute level. So I will close with a new question, which is, okay, we had an excellent discussion, how we take it out of this room? Thank you very much for putting this together. This was especially Mr. Damov's own feeling that these discussions need to be made. And I'm very happy that we're here, and coming to an end with what I opened, I still expect the authorities to give us also extra help other than accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. So the next step, as far as I would see it, and I just put this, and you don't have to say anything today, but I just want to close by saying that I think the people around the room sort of demonstrates that there probably is an interest. Now, the question is how to move forward with that. I think that's a question for the Circular Economy Coalition in Romania. What I can say for Close the Glass Loop is that if you decide coming out of this conference that you feel that, yes, we need to build an action plan for Romania and we want to become a national platform of Close the Glass Loop, we would obviously welcome you open arms, okay? That's why we're here. Number two is that if you become a national platform of Close the Glass Loop, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're Close the Glass Loop, but we're very open. It means that anyone within the partnership of, Circular Economy Coalition Romania would be a partner of Close the Glass Loop. You would have access to our network, access to all our documents, access to all our working groups, access to all the efforts that we put in, okay? So we're very open. We don't go around saying you're in, you're out, you're all in, okay? And the broader you are, the better. The third thing I would say is that we would then do our best to support you. There are basically two ways we can do that. One, as much as we can, facilitate exchange of best practice between all the other national platforms in Close the Glass Loop. So we have currently 12. We had a new one join this week, the Netherlands. So we have 12 national platforms, and if you choose to become a national platform in Romania, then we would have 13. Hopefully we won't stay on 13 for too long, and we'll try and get a 14th, because I know that some people have a problem with 13, and you don't even have 13 in rows in planes sometimes for some weird superstitious reason. So you would be more than welcome to benefit from that exchange of best practice. We then, as much as we can, provide information. You saw little snippets of that in terms of the performance of packaging glass, in terms of the study we did on Horeca, and obviously we will be investing in more studies to make it relevant for you to make decisions. The last thing is on funding. It's not a huge amount of funding, let's put things into perspective, but it's the kind of funding that might help to trigger the one or the other action in Romania. So, for instance, we were very happy that we could support this event today as Close the Glass Loop with a little bit of support, a little bit of funding. And if we can do more of this, we would be happy. It's a very simple process to apply for that funding, and if we can, then we go for it. We support you. So this is our framework. You would be more than welcome. And if we could support you in building your action plan, we would do that. Okay, we're a small team. We're a non-existent team almost, but we're there. Okay, so my last point is just to thank the interpreters. I always say that interpreters are the base for discussion and diplomacy. I would be really crushed versus broken in Romanian. Crushed versus broken. Yeah, okay. But if you did that, you did well. So a warm round of applause for our interpreters today. And finally, because I think she has been tirelessly organizing this conference, and it's been, a huge amount of effort put in to bring all these people together, I would like to give a warm round of applause to Christina. And thank you so much. I'm sure the Circular Economy Coalition will be in touch, but thanks for all your attention and good participation, good level of discussion. Appreciate the opportunity to have this in such an amazing setting here in Romania, and I think we're going to be hopefully continuing this discussion, and that you'll be part of our growing community. So thanks to all of you as well. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Jean-Paul, for the high level of moderation and for the insight. Thank you.